Hi everyone, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton here with our weekly update here on social media. Thanks for joining us this week. For those of you who don't know, Judicial Watch is a nonpartisan educational foundation that is essentially a government watchdog that keeps an eye on what the government's up to and tries to hold it accountable to the rule of law, a job that few others here in Washington seem to be doing these days, so we've been very busy. Accordingly, we've got some big news to discuss, or maybe not so big news, depending on what the outcome is, in terms of what Attorney General Jeff Sessions and, frankly, the FBI Director Christopher Wray are going to do about corruption in the FBI. Plus, we have major new documents out this week from the Broward County Sheriff's Department that will kind of, may dishearten you given what happened in the Parkland shootings. The training materials show that the deputies there were trained or should have been trained on how to respond appropriately, and obviously that wasn't done. So those documents are going to be shocking to you. But first up is this big news that supposedly the Attorney General, the top echelons of the Justice Department, are considering whether to remove and fire the number two or the former number two of the FBI, Andrew McCabe. Now, Andrew McCabe, I thought, had been shown the door several weeks ago, back at the end of January, by Christopher Wray. Turns out he just went on vacation and is about to retire, I think, according to reports on Sunday. That's the date. But the FBI internal watchdogs, DOJ internal watchdogs, have concluded, according to reports, and I don't know this to be a fact, but if you believe the media, that he may have lied to investigators about leaks about the Clinton email investigation. Now, why is it we're concerned? Now, you would think internal watchdogs telling you your guy lied should lead to their firing, right? Not in this FBI, not in this Justice Department. They're agonizing over whether to do it. Chris Wray obviously never pulled the trigger and fired Mr. McCabe, and now it supposedly is on General Sessions' desk. The fact that it's up until the last minute, they've waited as long as they have, is just disappointing and shocking, and it's going to be even more disappointing and shocking and frankly outrageous when I tell you more about Mr. McCabe, because I don't know what the IG found in terms of whether he was inappropriately involved in leaks or lying about leaks about the Clinton email investigation. We do know that he compromised the Clinton email investigation because Judicial Watch, not Congress, not the media, found that through our Freedom of Information Act litigation, we got documents, we forced them out of the FBI, that Andrew McCabe's wife, we know separately, had received $700,000 or so from a Clinton crony, then Governor Terry McAuliffe, to run for office in Virginia in 2015. So McCabe's wife is receiving money from the Clinton cash machine, more or less. He never recused himself from the Clinton email investigation, not when he was a top Washington field office official, and not when he was number two at the FBI and obviously the day-to-day guy running the Clinton email investigation. And we were told he didn't need to recuse himself, when in fact they secretly withheld from us, until Judicial Watch found out, he did recuse himself, but only a week before the November 2016 elections, and well after the Comey gang and his buddies at the FBI protected Hillary Clinton by pretending the law didn't apply to her. So after the investigation is largely over, he says he has to recuse himself. Well, if he had to recuse himself then, he should have recused himself earlier, which means the investigation entirely was compromised by his involvement. It wasn't the only reason the Clinton email investigation was compromised. We now know one of the lead people on the Clinton email investigation, Peter Strzok, who's the top counterintelligence official at the FBI, also had been meeting with Andrew McCabe, according to the text messages. He was an anti-Trumper and pro-Hillary Clinton. So the investigation of Hillary Clinton was compromised 6 ways to Sunday. And Andrew McCabe should have recused himself. We were told he didn't need to, when in fact he actually did, which means we were lied to. And then secondly, we had additional documents showing he was using his FBI computers to promote his wife's campaign, which is strictly forbidden. And one of the things that he promised, according to the documents, he wouldn't do such a thing. So I don't know what's in this IG report, because the separate issue is, according to, as best I can tell, reading between the tea leaves, is that he was involved in telling the Wall Street Journal or directing another FBI agent to tell the Wall Street Journal they were still looking into Hillary Clinton. Everyone thinks that the FBI was just purely protecting Hillary Clinton. No, they had another interest too. They were also protecting themselves. So the FBI under James Comey and Andrew McCabe wanted to have the appearance of doing an investigation. Because if they were seen as political, their institution suffered, and obviously they might lose their jobs. So they wanted to tell the media and the press, oh no, we're really looking at Hillary Clinton and it's a serious investigation. So when reports suggested otherwise, like in this case, it looks like McCabe authorized the leak and then, according to the reports, lied about it. So James Comey's FBI wanted to have their cake and eat it too with Hillary Clinton, kind of raking her all over the coals while essentially protecting her from any real accountability. It was always about the FBI, and frankly, Hillary Clinton was right to be upset, and I've said this for a long time, when James Comey came out and said that Hillary Clinton's the worst thing in the world, but she shouldn't be prosecuted. That wasn't his job as FBI director, either to attack her directly based on the contents he learned in his to what is supposedly a confidential FBI investigation. He wasn't supposed to do that, and nor were they supposed to leak material inappropriately about the investigation. So it's not to say Hillary Clinton wasn't ultimately protected improperly by the sham investigation that was compromised, not only by Attorney General Lynch with her tarmac meeting, but with, as I pointed out, McCabe's involvement and the pro-Hillary Clinton anti-Trump partisanship at the top echelons of the FBI, starting, of course, primarily with James Comey, but then his number two, Andrew McCabe, who was the go-to guy. So now we're a few days before his retirement, and as of today, the Attorney General hasn't acted. The FBI Director hasn't acted. I laid out there a pretty comprehensive case as to why Andrew McCabe should be nowhere near FBI headquarters right now, and they haven't done one darn thing to make that happen. Now, supposedly he was shown the door more or less and told he didn't have his number two slot back at the end of January. But even then, Ray, the FBI director, hasn't fired him. So this is a further indication, and I don't know how this is going to turn out, whether he gets fired or not, but the fact it's taking so long and there's so much agony over whether to do the right thing is a further indictment of the way the Justice Department and the FBI approaches corruption within its ranks. It's always about protecting the leadership of the DOJ and FBI from accountability. And it's not Democrat versus Republican, liberal, it's the deep state protecting their own. And I just hope Jeff Sessions is brave enough in this instance to do the right thing. The fact that Christopher Wray hasn't done the right thing, frankly, is par for the course. He seems more concerned about protecting the institution of the FBI than cleaning house of corruption in its ranks. So that's the issue we face. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to Andrew McCabe. If you lie to investigators, you can be prosecuted. No one's talking about that, which is another outrage. Ask General Flynn what happens when you lie to investigators, or it's alleged you lie to investigators. The federal government can come down on you like a ton of bricks. But Flynn made the mistake of working for Donald Trump, so the rules didn't apply to him. No one wanted to protect him. Andrew McCabe is an anti-Trumper. Ironically, he's being protected. The Hillary Clinton partisan. Ironically, he's being protected. Or I shouldn't say ironically, but he's being protected. So if you do anti-Trump activities at the FBI and Justice Department, nothing's done. Nothing's done. We've heard for months now they have 27 leak investigations going on. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe there'll be some accountability there, but I'm not holding my breath. This is why Judicial Watch does its own investigations. And as I said, I don't know what's going to happen with McCabe, but either way, he's still being protected because we've asked, for instance, for text messages of Andrew McCabe, because we have good reason to believe they're out there, and they're mostly about the handling of the Clinton email investigation. And we're representing a retired FBI supervisory agent, so a senior guy, Mr. Danik, who asked on his own for these records. He knows where they are. He knows how they should be maintained. And he got the runaround, so we worked with him, and we're representing him. Our lawyers are in court, federal court. We have a retired top senior FBI agent suing the Justice Department and FBI to get access to these McCabe texts. You know, what's the response? They produced records to us a few weeks ago, and not one text message. Why the text message is important? Well, we see from the Peter Struck-Lisa Page email text messages, those have been famously out there, why they're important. People convey a lot of important messages via text these days, not via email. And we know they're there, and the FBI has refused to turn over one text message, despite promising a federal court that they would look for all the records and turn them over to us. And we've asked, where are the text messages? And they've told us to go jump in a lake. That's not literally what they told us to do, but I've been doing this work long enough to know what the message is and how to interpret messages. And the legal message, the honest, fair interpretation is they told us to go jump in a lake, and they're not going to give us a darn thing, and we should shut up and like it. So this FBI is still protecting this Andrew McCabe from accountability by keeping records illegally from our client and the American people. So think about that the next time you hear about Christopher Wray and the FBI and how the leadership of the FBI is on the side of the rule of law and such. No, 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 no. My experience with the FBI, and as I said, I've been doing this for 20 years, administration through administration. It's arrogance, secrecy, contempt for the rule of law. So we'll see what happens. And it's a big test for General Sessions. If he doesn't fire Mr. McCabe, you can bet there are going to be a lot of unhappy Americans. And the fact it's taken this long shows why President Trump is frustrated with the Justice Department and why many Americans are frustrated with the Justice Department. Doing all sorts of great conservative policy moves. But on these corruption issues, it's been terrible. They need to clean house, they need to take on the deep state, and they need to be more brave in upholding the rule of law. Because I see a lot of fear-based decision-making by too many appointees of President Trump. Frankly, the most significant anti-corruption move when it came to cleaning house in the FBI and Justice Department was by the President personally when he fired James Comey. There's been nothing to match that since. So in the meantime, we'll maybe there'll be news this weekend about what happens to Andrew McCabe, but just so you know, it's been the fact that we're at this point is a scandal in and of itself. Now, of course, the FBI was caught in other incompetence and I don't know if it's malfeasance yet, but incompetence in not acting on tips that were giving to the agency specifically on the Parkland mass shooter. So we had all these demonstrations the other day, but not all directed at taking guns away from law-abiding Americans, as best I can tell, not dealing with the security failures by government agencies in protecting those children and ensuring those security failures don't take place in the future. And along those lines, Judicial Watch received some astonishing documents from the Broward County Sheriff's Department, and it was essentially their operating manual and their training materials on how to deal with an active shooter investigation. And Broward County is the county in which Parkland, the Parkland High School was or is, and famously one of the deputies stood outside the building rather than entering it. Well, you're going to be really upset when you learn about what the actual training is for handling active shooters. Generally speaking, the training is, thankfully, correct, at best I can tell. You confront the shooter as soon as possible. That's what the training is. And this is the really remarkable language from the training materials. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see it from a distance here. Remember, every time you hear a gunshot in an active shooter incident, you have to believe that another victim is being killed. And that's why the training materials tell the deputies and the officers to go directly to the shooter. And if there are 4 officers there, now we know Peterson was there by himself initially, he didn't go in and confront the shooter. And then even after additional officers showed up, they didn't go in, and it looks like, and confront the shooter. And this is the language that they use. History shows when a suspect is confronted by an armed individual, police, security, concealed carry person. Oh, American citizens can protect themselves. I'm glad the police, sheriff's department recognizes that. They either shoot it out with the person or kill themselves. So just think about that. The goal is to confront the shooter, so the shooter focuses on the law enforcement personnel or the person with the weapon rather than innocent bystanders who are getting shot at. Either way, the shooting, as this document says, of innocent bystanders must stop. Now, the first officer or 2 officers on scene will immediately go to confront the shooter. Military tactics work well in this situation. The 2-man bounding overwatch is our response. I can guess what bounding overwatch is, but my guess is it's a technique for 2 individuals to enter a situation where they may be confronted by an armed person. During Columbine, the response to an ongoing shooting situation was to contain the suspect. After Columbine, the International Chiefs of Police addressed the problem with the response and came up with the quad or diamond formation. So this is the formation that 4 officers are supposed to use. With the quad, the first 4 officers to respond entered the building with coverage in all directions. This was critical to address the concerns of officers who previously would not enter and just wait for SWAT. So if you're there by yourself or there weren't 2 officers, the goal was to save lives and get there quickly. And if there were 4 of you, they developed techniques that could get you in there more safely as law enforcement personnel without having to wait for SWAT. And this is the kicker of the whole piece again, and it's worth emphasizing. If you are on scene or in the area and hear gunshots, you should immediately assess what you have and prepare to respond. Remember, every time you hear a gunshot in an active shooter incident, you have to believe another victim is being killed. Now, I read these documents and I was pretty upset by them, knowing what happened in Parkland. Because either this training was not given to everyone, or the training was not followed through by the deputy or deputies on the scene. And where's the accountability for the sheriff as a result of this training failure? It's a training failure in the least. I mean, the deputy was essentially forced out. He resigned in disgrace. But was he trained? And why did he think he could do the wrong thing? And it's a leadership issue as well, in my view. Another interesting part before I let you go. Again, these are documents the Judicial Watch obtained under the Freedom of Information Law, the Sunshine Law as it's known in Florida. It's a very powerful law. The lesson plan lists priorities in life as 1, hostage as victims, 2, innocent bystanders, 3, police deputies, and 4, suspects. And this is what the document says. If in doubt about going through the door after a suspect, think about the victims and where they stand on the list. Time is critical in each of these incidents. This is like no other crime. The motive is to kill as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time. Why? Because the bad guys know we're coming. Where in the discussions about gun control that the anti-Second Amendment types are using, or they're using Parkland to promote gun control. What does this have to do with the documents I just read to you? I tell you, I mean, I was upset that obviously you read these documents and and obviously that was not the deputies on the scene, or the initial deputy did not follow up as appropriate and go in and protect and protect those students and personnel there in the school and confront that shooter. But I was pleased to see that at least the training materials make a lot of sense. They make a lot of sense. And this is what I would do if I were you. I'd go to Judicial Watch's website, get this press release, and share it with your elected officials and tell them this is what we need to be focusing on. Because the gun control debate is politics. It doesn't have much to do with public safety. I mean, those of you who follow Second Amendment issues understand that. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty on that. They're not talking about this. Are law enforcement personnel trained adequately? And will they behave adequately given pressure situations like the active shooter in Parkland? Are there trained individuals armed and trained individuals in the schools that can also confront shooters? So this is what can be done to save lives. Confront the shooter as quickly as possible with an armed response to get him to stop killing people. And those kids that were out there this week skipping school, protesting, being used by these leftist politicians to promote irrelevant gun measures, those kids aren't going to be made more safe by the policies the leftists were using them to promote. This is a discussion that would ensure their safety. So this is why I'm so proud to work at Judicial Watch, because we do this sort of work and we get these documents out, and it's essential educational work for voters, for citizens, for children. If you're a high school student, go ahead and look at this material and ask, is your school set up in a way that would get an armed response as quickly as possible in the event of an active shooter? And do the local police follow these priorities and strategies in dealing with active shooters? Because if they were, lives can be saved more quickly, or more lives can be saved. So the documents are available on our website at judicialwatch.org. Get them and share them. And Judicial Watch is focused on Washington, and we're also focused where we can on the states. So in Florida, when something like this happens and it's of national importance, or sometimes only of importance to Florida, we sometimes go in and uncover what's going on so the American people know what their government's up to or not up to in the case of Parkland. So with that, I'll let you go. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. And happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you fellow Irishmen. Thank you very much.